Lincolnshire County Council is in debt to the tune of £460 million.
The £1.3 billion that Cornwall Council is in debt.
Nottingham City Council has gone bankrupt. So we had Birmingham City Council, we've got Nottingham City Council, and my personal council, Gravesham Borough Council, didn't have enough money.
UK councils are on the brink of bankruptcy. They're raising the council tax up to 5 times the legal limit.
Going bankrupt is probably the worst thing that could happen to any council. I can't think of anything more serious than bankruptcy.
And all the councils up and down the country are the exact same. Do you know, everybody is the exact same. Every council is bankrupt.
If the council does go bankrupt, what does that mean for Enfield residents? Well, it means a massive council tax increase.
Councils are literally in paralysis, which means all the services are going to start falling apart. People aren't getting paid.
Imagine that, 4 weeks worth of waste piling up before it gets collected. So the council are saying it's to save money.
So the city of Birmingham is bankrupt. And they're cutting all kinds of things, which is horrible. You're going to cut the libraries? You're going to cut the libraries? I'm more ready to mentally accept fortnightly trash pickup than I am to not have a free place to go with my frickin' kid to read books.
They really took light in freaking UK. What the?
Welcome back to Brit Rants, where we expose the madness of a country that charges more and gives you less. Across Britain, councils are going bankrupt, and instead of cutting waste, they're cutting services. Libraries shut, rubbish uncollected, youth centres gone, potholes permanent. But your council tax bill? That's still going up. You're paying more for streetlights that don't work, roads that aren't fixed, and services that barely exist. And while working class families scrape together £2,000 plus a year, councils blow millions on consultants, rebranding, and bloated salaries. Today, we're diving into TikToks from people who've had enough of being rinsed by a broken system. Hit subscribe if you're sick of paying for a society that no longer serves you.
Politics is boring, and I think it's been purposely made boring for a long time. Reason why? They can steal as much money as possible from the working people.
Lincolnshire County Council is in debt to the tune of £460 million. But here's the kicker. The daily interest on that debt, daily, being funded by council taxpayers, it's £52,000 a day.
And all the councils up and down the country are the exact same. Do you know, everybody is the exact same. Every council is bankrupt. Every council. Who's responsible for this? People need to stand up. People need to see what's happening, because no one else is going to pay it back but us. We are going to have to pay this money back, or as kids are going to have to pay this money back. How do we move forward? How do we stop this happening in the future? But how do we stop people within the councils, within government? How do we stop it from happening? What's the answer?
Okay, I'm not driving, I'm stationary, but I needed to tell you this because my sister just told me that Nottingham City Council has gone bankrupt. So we had Birmingham City Council, we've got Nottingham City Council, and my personal council, Gravesham Borough Council, didn't have enough money to do the fireworks this year. So what the fudge is going on? Is this a sign of thing to, is this a thing, a sign of things to come ahead? Like, is that what's happening? Everyone's going to go bust, and then what comes next?
As if the UK isn't already a big enough pile of shit, we are now only going to be collecting household waste, general waste, once a month within the next few weeks. Imagine all of this sitting outside in the summer for a whole month before it's collected. Now there is 42 councils in the UK, all of these ones here, that are looking to reduce when the waste is collected and also your recycling. They are looking to collect household waste once a month, every 4 weeks, and recycling once every fortnight, every 2 weeks. And this could be potentially rolled out and start happening within the next few weeks. What the f*** are we going backwards like this? We're going to be paying more money to councils to get much of a lesser service. How are we going back so far in time? I wouldn't be surprised if so we can integrate better with those that want to live in caves. For fuck's sake.
Hey, have you heard that Nottingham City Council has gone bankrupt? How does a council go bankrupt? I didn't know they were a business. Did they buy a load of hot tubs and hoping to sell them over Christmas? Or did they buy a load of solar panels hoping to sell them in Scotland? No, they'd overspent by £23 million in this financial year. How can you overspend £23 million in 1 year with the people in accounts on poppers? No, it was spent on services and rising costs. Couldn't they do what the other councils had done and just spent what was in the bank account and the kitty? Yes, they did. They followed what Birmingham City Council did, but they went bankrupt too. Exactly. Where's Robin Hood when you need him? He's in Surrey and Westminster looking for councils to rob.
They really took light in freaking UK. What the heck? This is shocking. Yeah?
But do you know that listeners, I'm happy actually.
This is the first time this is happening. Like, this is a freaking...
So the city of Birmingham is bankrupt. And they're cutting all kinds of things, which is horrible. But as an immigrant who's lived here just a year, who has a small kid and not many friends and no money, we go to the library all the time, okay? You're gonna cut the libraries? You're gonna cut the libraries? I'm more ready to mentally accept fortnightly trash pickup than I am to not have a free place to go with my frickin' kid to read books. Moms and babies need the library. They need the library. Free places to be are so important to society. And just from a mom and baby perspective, it's like, okay, you could take them to the coffee shop, well, you have to buy something there. You could take them to the playgroup, those cost money. You could go to the botanical garden, that costs money. In England, you can't really be outside as much of the year as one would like. So you go to the library. The central library in the middle of town doesn't even open till 11 in the morning. What is a mom with a kid gonna do with that, huh? So what, I'm supposed to take a bus into the middle of town with my kid, show up right at 11 when they open, read a book or two, and then be like, oops, we're late for your nap already? Don't close the libraries. Don't close the libraries. People need them. People need the libraries.
Hello, Grumpy. Go on and fight. Can anyone tell me out there why they're not talking about the councils that Reflux are running collapsing? Because they are. The Kent Council is collapsing. Nothing's going on down there. It's complete paralysis. Northumberland has gone into special measures, but nobody's talking about that. All the rest of the councils are all in problems as well. They've stopped this, that and the other, mainly about flags and not really doing any work. They're all talking about doing a doge before they do anything else, which means the councils are literally in paralysis, which means all the services are going to start falling apart. People aren't getting paid. They're also talking to people who are there about opting out of the state pension that they're in, opting out of the pension that they actually get from the council for doing their jobs. This is unbelievable. But why not talk about it in the papers? Where is the outrage? Why not talk about this? Goes against the narrative, right? Yeah. Gotta love right-wing media, ain't you? Vile.
If you had said to somebody 5 years ago that British councils would be facing bankruptcies at this scale, they would think that the country was coming to an end, like the fabric of society was disintegrating. But no, here we are looking at councils up and down the country facing bankruptcies, and our media and the government seem to be taking quite a laissez-faire attitude to it, as if this is just like par for the course. This is abnormal. This is not anything that we should become normalised to or desensitised to. Going bankrupt is probably the worst thing that could happen to any council. I can't think of anything more serious than bankruptcy, other than possibly a terrorist attack. But as councils go, bankruptcy is the worst thing you can face, and it's happening on a almost industrial scale. But, you know, our government and our media just like whistling and saying, oh, well, this is just how it is now.
A London council is now looking to buy back council leasehold properties. And if this doesn't highlight market inefficiencies in the housing crisis in London, I don't know what does. Now, these are the exact same properties that Thatcher sold under the right to buy scheme in the 70s. Now the council is buying them back at the inflated prices of today from the very same people that they sold them to. You just can't make this stuff up. What a complete waste of taxpayers' money. Now, this is no shade to anyone who's able to purchase a property under the right to buy scheme. Kudos, hats off to you. But it just seems super inefficient for a council to sell a property for one price and then buy it back years later at the grossly inflated market price. And the fact that councils are having to do this when they don't just go ahead and build properties, and this method is somewhat cheaper than building new houses, is just incredibly inefficient. And it just goes to show the scale of the housing crisis throughout the UK, but particularly in London. Seeing this today absolutely shocked me, and I think future generations are absolutely cooked, especially if you're living in London. More and more needs to be done from a government level to increase the levels of housing stock. But at the same time, there's a massive conflict of interest because a lot of MPs are private landlords themselves. So why would they increase the housing stock when they're making so much money out of the fact that there is a housing shortage in the UK and especially in London? Let me know what you think in the comments below, but I think this just highlights the scale of the issue.
So we say Birmingham City Council effectively declares bankruptcy after being hit by a £760 million bill. Yo, they're talking about they ain't got no money to be paying benefits and all this madness. I don't know how that works. But yeah, something must have happened because, you know, the only time you declare bankruptcy is when you get a bill bigger than you can pay, or you get a bill that you can pay, but you don't want it.
So I've got a question. When was it that we elected a government to simply make rules and tell us what to do? I thought they were supposed to look after us. I didn't think they were supposed to just create new rules, make them law, and then tell us what to do. Their looking after us has become quite peculiar recently. It's definitely time that we all start scrutinising what they're doing and why they're bringing in these rules. Because if we ask the question why, there's some frightening answers behind it.
Have you heard what some councils are doing with the bin collection? Some places in the UK are cutting back rubbish collection to just once a month. Imagine that, 4 weeks worth of waste piling up before it gets collected. So the councils are saying it's to save money and boost recycling, but people are fuming because the council tax is going up from April and they're doing this. So places like Conwy in Wales and already made the switch, and now Bristol is considering it too. People there are protesting like mad because they're worried about rats, smells and overflowing bins. Some have even started paying private companies to take the rubbish away. It's not just them. There's so many other places that are currently considering and are looking into it too. So if this spreads, we could all be stuck with monthly bin collections. Can you imagine the mess? What do you think? Is this a good idea or total disaster? Because I personally think if they're going to do that, they should reduce the council tax that we're paying, because the council tax is apparently going up higher from April. So it doesn't make sense. So they're making us pay more council tax, but the bin collection is going to get reduced. Make it sense.
How much longer can the British public continue to support people who should not be in this country? The government cannot keep taxing people into oblivion to pay for people who should not be here, number one. Number two, have never worked and will possibly never work in this country and pay taxes and national insurance. What do they think is going to happen? What is going to happen? It cannot continue. The taxpayers cannot continue to fund other countries, other people. It cannot continue. The country is going to go broke very, very quickly if this continues.
Hello everybody. Blackpool Council is £210 million in debt. Why is that? Well, they built a hotel. This is one of the reasons. They built a hotel here behind me. Can you see the Holiday Inn? Now I just turn around here. They built this huge monstrosity. It's not in keeping with the place. They also want to build down here on the right hand side of the picture a university. The issue here is this is our money coming into the town, back into the town, but it's being used by corporate businesses. This links into the council, which is under like orders, as it were, to help big business use our money for their profits and to pay the debts on the bank. This is how it's destroying our society. People probably wouldn't. I mean, obviously there's falls and against for everything, but really the general trend is that could have been built on the outskirts of Blackpool with parking. There's no thought to it. People and the residents around here don't want the university here. So what we need to do is we need to bring back local democracy. I'm standing for the independent MP in Blackpool, and I will put your wishes to the Parliament and also to the Council. So thank you very much, and please pass the message around. Please like and share this to all your groups in Blackpool and your friends, and let's make a difference. Thank you very, very much.
So I can't really sleep. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to answer a couple of questions, two main ones really, that I've heard a lot from residents off the back of what the Enfield Conservatives have been saying about why the council will go bankrupt. So let me start first with, well, if the council does go bankrupt, what does that mean for Enfield residents? Well, it means a massive council tax increase next year, if it does happen this year or at the beginning of next year. But the other question I get is, well, you guys keep saying this, but how have they gotten themselves, Enfield Labour, into the position of borrowing £1.5 billion by the end of this year? And it's quite simple, really. So number one is £450 million for Meridian Water, which was meant to deliver 10,000 homes. But after 14 years and £450 million of debt, it's only achieved and developed 200 properties. That's a massive failure. The other one is Energetic, which on paper sounds like a very good scheme, but has failed abysmally, and that's a district heating network which has failed. That's nearly £100 million in debt. The other one is Housing Gateway. Now, Housing Gateway essentially is the council undercutting first-time buyers, people that want to buy property in the borough, because they've got a massive checkbook, although it's debt-laden, and buying up family housing for those people on temporary accommodation. Now, the ambition of the scheme may very well have been a good one, but that money could have been better spent in more, wiser investments to help people on temporary accommodation. And I remind you that for all of their moaning, Enfield has one of the highest rates of temporary accommodation, and the council's failed abysmally to house people that are in need. So, number one, that's what a bankrupt council will mean for you, and two, how they found themselves in this position.
UK councils are on the brink of bankruptcy. They're raising the council tax up to 5 times the legal limit. So over 4 million households in England could face council tax hikes, and that's up to 5 times the legal limit as cash-strapped local authorities exploit a loophole to tackle budget shortfalls. So exactly the numbers are about 4.4 million people that will be affected. So a total of 8 councils are proposing significant increase ranging from 10% to 25% starting this year in April. And that's surpassing the usual 4.99% cap set by the government. So the Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead stands with plans for staggering 25% rise. That's the largest council tax increase in England in 20 years. So these sharp hikes are being made possibly by council threatening to issue Section 114 notice, effectively declaring bankruptcy, which grants them ability to exceed standard limits with ministerial approval. So what do you think in this case? I think it's ridiculous, because our own council is going through nearly to brink of bankruptcy. They will increase and make us suffer.
John Lawrence, National Housing Party. So I'm outside the council, guys. And what's gone on this month, we've had people eavesdropping on meetings, a root shark calling them out in the council. Labour lost a majority, but independents have joined forces to give them power again. No one's happy about it. Before the election, talking to Peter Brown, I said it's going to get worse before it's going to get better. After the election, he said, John, you were right. It's going worse before it's going to get better. This is Oldham Council. And the thing I struggle with, I'm not a snidey backstabbing scumbag. It's just not in my blood to be like this with other people. That's the only thing discouraging me of wanting to be a local councillor. And eavesdropping on meetings, the kind of backstabbing that goes on between councillors. I'm sorry guys, I don't have much respect for any of our councillors if they're all involved in this. So the Lib Dems have been highlighted in this eavesdropping scandal. Arut Shah's called them out in a public meeting, and it's just an absolute disgrace. So again, it's the only thing discouraging me from running is the backstabbing and all that. And you know, like, if I do get a seat, I'm gonna be really targeted by this. But I'm a strong lad. I think I'm doing right. I'm looking forward to, in 2 years, the election then, to more than double my votes. I've been working alongside residents with issues in Hollingwood to do with the council and other residents around Oldham, and I'll continue to do it. But it's a bit scary, all this backstabbing and all that goes on, and it's a bit off-putting. But I'm gonna keep on with it. I'm gonna keep strong, and I'm gonna do the best I can. John Lawrence, National Housing Party, Oldham Council.
Hey guys, Steve here. So it turns out the £1.3 billion that Cornwall Council is in debt, there's £147,000 per day interest charge. That is just absolutely ridiculous. So all of the council tax rise, most of that is going to go on paying £4 million a month interest on a 1.3 billion debt. And then we get the 1.5 million homes that is going to be built around the country by Angela Rayner, most of which is now quite common knowledge is going to go to migrants, illegal immigrants in this country. Rather than putting them up in hotels, they're going to put them up in these new houses, which you'd think that you'd have a say if they were going to be built near you. They should be for local people because, you know, our children are struggling to get onto the property ladder. But they've just changed that as well. So your local council isn't going to have a say in where those homes are built. They're going to have some guy who's obviously probably based in London being controlled by Angela Rayner, giving the nod and making sure that local councils don't have any say in where all these houses are being built. And the first 18,000, by the way, have just been commissioned to be built at the cost of £2 billion. That's for 18,000. That's for, obviously, for the land, the greenbelt land they're going to build it on, blah, 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 and all the rest of it. So to build 1.5 billion, you can do the math yourself, can't you? It's going to be an extraordinary amount of our money. None of the local people, nobody who's on the waiting list now, are going to get a chance of living in them. They're going to take people out of hotels, put them straight in new houses while they're all on benefits. Absolutely ridiculous. The only way forward is to vote reform in your local council elections coming up on May the 1st, and we can begin to change this rubbish. Let me know what you think in the comments.
You have until the 21st of April to submit on this, the 10-year budget for the Wellington City Council. And it is so important that you do, because they are cutting a lot of things that will help us reduce our pollution. I've made a 5-minute submission template that you can use to tell your councillors and to tell the City Council overall what you think about it. So the council's preferred option in this 10-year plan is to cut about $385 million worth of spending over the next 10 years. And quite a lot of that is the projects that we need to address climate change. Bus lanes, bike lanes, footpath improvements, you know, all that stuff that 2/3 of Wellington commuters use every single day. So they want to cut the funding for about half of the bike network that they promised a few years ago and extend it out so that it takes 20 years rather than 10. And then they want to only do interim improvements for the bus lanes that have already been approved and cut all funding for all new bus lanes for 10 years. 10 years! Perhaps strangest of all is that the only reason this is happening is because the council thinks that it is way too underinsured in the event of a once-in-a-thousand-year earthquake. So you'd think with these massive cuts that we solve the underinsurance problem, but we barely cover 10% of the underinsurance with these massive budget cuts. And to me, that's just not worth it. The likeliness of a climate disaster fueled by prolonging our pollution is way higher than a once-in-a-thousand-year earthquake. That is just like no-brainer to me. We should be prioritizing cutting pollution. But the only way that we can do anything about this is by submitting on it. If you want Wellington to keep cutting its pollution, you need to submit on this, and you need to do it by the 21st of April. Go and do it right now.
This is our Birmingham City Council run the city. This is Washwood East roads. It's congested because Birmingham City Council and the planning department for the highways. Look how they have messed up this. This is Washwood East Road, in between Bennett's Road and Arley Road. That's Birmingham V8. And once you got two buses, when both buses are coming from each side, the road is so tight that the two buses are not able to go past each other. And whoever introduced this has messed up this whole road, and they have now caused a chaos and congestion. And when they talk about ULEZ for Birmingham city centre, what about the lives of the people who live here? So don't they care about the people living out of the city centre? Do they only care about the people living inside the city centre? Those millionaires who can afford those flats in their studio flats. And they have disregard for the people who live out of Birmingham city centre. Look at how it is polluting the outer side of Birmingham. Look at the congestion, and that has been caused by Birmingham City Council Planning Department, Highways Planning Department. And we the people need to be pushing our councillors for this area to do something about it, because these kind of plans are hurting the local community. So please, everybody, get in touch with your councillors and tell them to remove these lines and have the traffic free flow the way it used to be previously. Look at it now. As you can see now, it's congestion, and it's all the way to Fox and Goose, because Birmingham City Council Planning Department were not able to plan it properly. And there was no need for a bus lane here, but they introduced it so they could make more misery for the local community. And they have disregard for the local community completely.
Good morning. I'm not sure whether I mentioned before, but about 6 months ago, I attended a meeting run by the County Council. And the meeting was for people that were interested in becoming councillors. So they were giving you help and support and information, answering any questions about what it was like to do the job. Now, I'd been retired about 18 months and I thought maybe I should do some volunteering and maybe give something back to the community. So I went along to this meeting with the expectation that I'd be of real value to them. My previous role in marketing might not seem relevant, but I had an expenditure budget of £10 million, which I spent each year, and I had to demonstrate a good return on that in terms of company revenue. That's how I was measured. I was pretty good working with a team of people, and I had good communication skills. So I thought there's bound to be something that I would be ideally placed to add value. So about 45 minutes into the meeting, I thought there's no way I can help here. And the reason for that is they went through their budget and they split the budget down by category. So the category for roads and car parking and bin collections and other services. But from memory, it was either 2/3 or even 70% or more was spent on adult social care. So care homes, day centres, home help, basically support for adults that needed it to improve their quality of life. And I was shocked by this, and apparently it's the case for all councils, that the vast majority, the biggest pot by a mile, is adult social care. Now, Reform have won all these councils this week, and they've gone in on the back of cutting waste, kind of Elon Musk, take a chainsaw, Doge style cuts. And I can't see where they're going to cut unless they go for the oldest and the weakest and the most vulnerable people. Now, there's bound to be a little bit of efficiency, but they've made some big promises that these cuts are going to be huge, have a big impact, and will allow them to bring the council tax bills down. And having seen the budget breakdown firsthand and understand the pressures that they're under to provide these services without cutting back, it's a tough job. I wouldn't want the job anyway, because they've got to make some awful decisions on a daily basis about what they can spend and where. Now, I know what's going to happen. After a few months, Reform are going to say, well, it's not our fault, it's the government. They've cut our funding, or they've not given us what we need, and that sort of thing, and blame starts. In the same way that they blamed the wrong kind of Brexit for the fact that the country's lost £50 billion a year as a result of leaving the EU. There's always somebody else to blame. Lots of promises, lots of easy answers to very difficult problems, and then when it doesn't work, you blame somebody else. So we shall see what happens, but having had a little bit of insight into what the local council have got to do, I don't envy their task.
This isn't just bad management, it's theft in plain sight. Councils are collapsing under their own incompetence, yet the burden always falls on us. Working Brits are punished, while executives keep their perks and politicians pass the buck. The question is, how much longer will we accept this? Drop your local council horror story in the comments, subscribe to Brit Rants, and let's keep calling out this farce, because if we don't make noise, they'll keep draining us dry.